big successful business, and he'll be following us. So we arrived to Sydney, Australia, 47 January. It was 6 weeks on a small boat, but these 6 weeks was good for my Alex to learn English, and we all were looking forward to Australia. In Sydney, my cousin waited for us. She was really wonderful and terrific, like a sister, and gave us advice and took us into her house. And I enrolled Alex in Hebrew school because I felt like that's what I want to make it sure that he'll always remember he's Jewish. And unfortunately, my husband couldn't practice there full registered physician could. He again had private patients. Everybody discovered him, and he had many Australian, Hungarian, Jewish patients. But he couldn't get the license because they had a law that you had to be 5 years in the bush in Australia to obtain a license, and he didn't want to do that, and therefore the occasion came when his cousin told him that he could get sponsored from an American hospital on Long Island, Long Beach, and they need a house doctor, and we have to decide right away. And my husband, he was quick in decision, and always then this time I didn't even try to say no, because I knew him, and I knew that up till now everything he decided, he had the vision, and he wants to go to America. So I said yes, and that time I didn't think my parents could come out. In Budapest already the Iron Curtain was, and the communists took away all his belongings, all his money, and he wouldn't even have money for fare to come to Australia after us. But luckily I was mistaken, because we had a good connection in Sydney, and one day I was able to get permit for them to come through Israel to Australia. And one day they called me on the telephone and they said, we are on our way. So I was more than happy, but my husband had to leave to fulfill his obligation in Long Beach, and I stayed over with my parents another 6 months till end of the year, when my visa would expire if I wouldn't come. And I gave them my house. They stayed in the house, and they rented some rooms, so they had extra income. And they were able to set up a little factory, so-called. Wasn't too many machines, maybe 2 or 3, but it was called factory. And I had to say goodbye again, and came to America, and my husband had to start again. I think that was his 4th starting in his life.
And you had another child by this time?
In Australia, my younger son Robert was born, and so I had the 2 boys. And I came to New York with the 2 boys, and I again sent them here to Jewish school, which was important to me, while my husband tried to get his license in New York State, and it took him 3 years because he was working and he has always some other projects too. And then in 1957, my parents could come to America. After 5 years we were here, and they were very happy to follow us because they were very lonely in Australia without them.
And of course, the language was something that you all learned.
Language my parents learned, and I, as you can hear, not very good, but I learned. And I learned a lot from the children. Again, I was helping my husband in the office. I was his secretary and driver because he had other offices, different places. And for him to rest in the car, I was his driver too. Then later on, I became an administrator of a nursing home, which we built. And so I was busy with this, and my mother worked there too, and my father tried to find his other job, and he succeeded. He became a jeweler, a salesman, and everybody loved him because no matter where he went, people just loved him. He was an honest and sweet man. And that's how we lived. And unfortunately, when everything seemed to be beautiful and nice, my father passed away.
And when was that?
That was 1966, just 5 weeks before Alex's wedding. So, like they say, the Jewish people think that every happiness has to be marked by sadness. And so it wasn't perfect, our happiness, because we were crying for our beloved father.
And your mother?
My mother then lived with us until he passed away in 1993, January. Then my husband wasn't all well, but he worked till the last day, until his maybe 2 weeks before he passed away, which was 1993, January.
So now you're here with your children are here.
My children are here, and Robert, he became a dentist, my younger son, and he wanted to fulfill his dream because he was always very active in Hebrew study. He has his Hebrew master in Hebrew history too. Beside that, he's a dentist. And when before his bar mitzvah, I sent him to Israel for studying and for bar mitzvah trip. And he came back and he said, "Ma, I want to live there." I said, "That will pass," thought myself, but it didn't. And after his graduation from dental school, he went to an Auschwitz tour. He wanted to see where are his grandmother he never met, and where are his uncles. And he came back and he says, "I don't understand, how can you live anywhere else but in Israel among our people? And if Israel would have been in your time, surely Hitler wouldn't succeed for killing all millions and millions of people." And so he got married in New York, 1979, and his wife is an American-trained lawyer. Debbie is her name, and she went to live with him, and they have 6 children, and as I will show you on the pictures, and successful and well-known and well-liked.
So you have how many grandchildren?
I have 9 grandchildren and 1 great-grandson. And when I think about it, how was that? Was it maybe was it worth it to survive and go through hell and live like rats in the bunker and see all the cruelty and even the jungle had their law, but these Hitler's people and the Nazis, they didn't have law and they were just like animals. But I think about all my grandchildren and my great-grandchild, and that's what life is all about it. And I cry for my lost ones, all my friends and cousins when I think about them. And I think about them very often, that they would have had children and they would have been close to me, and they didn't survive. And my husband's family and all these families, they are no more. Therefore, I hope all my children will remember all the time that it shouldn't happen again, and that they will never forget that they belong to the Jewish race, that Hitler taught us that really we are a race, looks like it. We should have to keep together, but not to forget that they were righteous people among them, noble people.
So that if there's something you would want the world to know as a result of the experience that you had.
That's what I feel, that they were lots of noble people whom we are grateful forever. The lady who saved Alex, and I was in contact with her till the day she died, and the Svoboda couple, wife and husband, they were also, they saved our life. They saved 32 people's life, which was unique in Budapest. I don't remember, I don't know any other big family who stayed alive in one place. And we can thank them. So they were noble, righteous people. Unfortunately, most of them were not. But we should remember that we cannot just say everybody is bad. They were nice people, noble ones too. And we should never forget what happened. Because if we talk about it, these martyr relatives and friends, they didn't die in vain. They will live forever in our memory.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank
and
you.
We'll have your family here, and also we'll see some pictures, and these pictures will be pictures you've chosen to illustrate what you wanted to say. Okay.
Yes. This is Alex, my firstborn, whom I did everything to save him from the murderers, and I succeeded with the help of my parents, and who was worth it every second, every breath of me. And this is Vicky, my beloved daughter-in-law, who is faithful wife and daughter-in-law the last 29 years. And Beth, who is my firstborn granddaughter, and I loved her from the first minute on. And this is Mackenzie, who is my great-grandson, which is a big thing to live, and when I look at him, I know it was worthwhile to survive the murderers and all these terrible years.
Well, it's hard to believe that it's been 50 years, or almost 50 years since we left Hungary, and here I am with my family and my daughter's family. It's certainly a different experience for me as a not a first-generation American, but rather as a immigrant to be standing here with my child, who's a first-generation American, and my grandchild, and to have been able to survive all of these different hardships. Actually, for my parents to have survived all of these hardships over the course of time is a tribute to their fortitude, courage, foresight, and belief in themselves.
I would just like to say that I'm just filled with such admiration and respect for my mother-in-law and of course for my deceased father-in-law. And hearing people today in this generation complaining about little nonsensical things and hardships in life after hearing about what they've been through and the courage that they had. And we're very grateful that they were able to survive when so many people perished. And mother-in-law is a really remarkable, wonderful woman that we all really respect and admire tremendously. You okay?
No. Excuse me. Will you describe this picture?
This is my mother and father engagement picture in 1920.
And who are we looking at here?
This is my mother, my father, and myself. It was about 1928, my uncle's wedding.
Okay, and this picture you will describe as what?
As I am standing with my class the last day of our graduation, and with our director, who was Sir Wirth, was his name, and he became Sir by the governor of Horthy, and he was very proud of him, and very strict man. And I'm standing the second row from the front, and I am in the second right of the picture, and they were my closest friends.
And how old were you in this picture? How old were you?
I was 18 years old after finishing, graduating from gymnasium and getting my baccalaureate. This picture was my father's life saving, put in this apartment building, which Super and his wife was saved, although 32 other people were dead in the shelter while the couple were upstairs saving my belongings. And after the house demolished by the bomb, they moved into our house and saved our life in the bunker.
And here we have a wedding picture.
This is my wedding picture, and it was already modest wedding. Young people were, most of them, in the army. My husband was on leave, 3 days leave, but my grandparents in the first row left is my grandfather, my husband, me, and my grandmother sitting on the first row, and behind to the left, the second row is my mother, and behind my grandfather in the black hat is my father, top hat. He had a top hat on, and that's my father. The rest is family. You don't ask. This book is full with best wishes at my wedding, and my father sent out telegram blanks and asked the invited people if they want, instead of telegram, to send in money for the poor people of his synagogue, which the synagogue had a Talmud Torah school. So the money would go towards this, and the children will be able to learn the Talmud. And that was very important for my father. It was a unique idea of his, and I call it the legacy from my father, that he taught even in these bad days, in the danger, he taught about the poor children. And lots of telegrams came like that, hundreds and hundreds, which he put it in one book. He bound it and gave it to me right after the wedding, in June 14, 1942.
Will you describe this picture?
This is Alex when he was 10 months old, and just a week or two before I had to give him away to Mrs. Kratochvil, who saved his life. I'm holding him like I don't want him to go.
And this picture?
This is Alex with Mrs. Kratochvil, who took him in the country, and he was really very well kept by her, and I'm always grateful for that.
Okay, this picture is...
This is my husband, Dr. Oscar Sreter, married to him 49.5 years, and the photograph was taken when he was honored by UJA in 1972. He also was a very outstanding member of his society and active in all Jewish causes.
This picture?
This is my son, Dr. Robert Sreter, who emigrated to Israel with his family. Next to him is Debbie, his wife, and 6 children. Start from the left, Dov. Next to him is the oldest Miriam, who was already bat mitzvah. Front of Miriam is the youngest David. I myself is standing there next to Robert, and front of me is Batsheva, and Debbie is holding Shira's hand, and next to Shira is Hillel. They wonderful, beautiful children, and I love them, and I'm going as many times as I can to see them, to Israel.
And this picture?
They are my 3 grandchildren, the Alex and Vicky's children, my grandchildren, and is Dana, who is getting married shortly. Middle is Beth, who is married and has the baby Mackenzie, and named in Hebrew after my husband Azriel. And next to her is David, who is going to graduate NYU Law School this year.